It is time for another installment of Fiction to Fashion, and it's Loki's turn. I am about a month or more behind when the Loki season 2 came out, but I've just been busy and I planned it back end of September to make it before the first episode of Loki arrived, but that did not happen. But I also bought the fabric, and so it was sitting in my sewing room for that time, staring at me from the bag like, when are you gonna make me? When are you gonna make me? But I decided I just need to make it. I just need to do it, and we'll see how it turns out. I have an idea in my mind of what I want it to look like, but it was really based on the fabrics that I was able to find at the local fabric store, which is this pleated looking fabric. It's all pleated up, all the yardages, and it was pretty expensive, so I didn't want to do it like fully that. Let me fix lighting real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, that's better. So I really liked the look of this fabric that I found. When looking at Loki, there's a lot of diagonal like lines going on, and I felt like a structured look with pleats would look really good, but I didn't want to make all those pleats at all on all the skirt and stuff. And so when I saw this fabric, I really liked the idea of it already being like a pleated look, stripes that I could play with the diagonal aspect of it. And so I think I want to do like a woven looking design across the bodice. And then the skirts are gonna just kind of flare out. And in between like the section of pleated fabric that flares out of the skirt, I wanna put different like godets in those like spread out things. So it feels a little similar to what I did with the underdress of my Spider-Man red carpet look with the red. It was like a bias cut dress, and then I put godets in there of a chiffon that gave some really nice texture to it. And I really liked the look, but for the most part, that red dress is kind of hidden underneath the blue part. But I really liked how that red dress turned out with those godets. And so I'm kind of channeling that same style in this one, but I'm hoping to showcase it a little bit better, especially with the different textures that's going on with the fabrics and the pleated fabric. So we'll see if I stick with that. But the bodice, I definitely want to just get playing with the fabric, playing around with different angles of those pleats and working them together to create a diagonal look. We'll just play around with it and see what happens. So stay tuned as we do this project. Also, I'm trying to channel Loki in this outfit, but I feel like I'm just like a vintage looking person, so I try.
With the main vision in mind, it was a matter of playing around with the fabric to create the desired lines on the bodice, and this happened with draping, redraping, and draping again until I could create the look I was imagining in real time with real fabric. This process is where you have to just let the fabric do what it wants to do and not force your vision too much upon it. Finding that balance between those two things is really where the magic happens. Once I liked where this section of the design was heading, it was time to baste up my pleats to keep them in place so I could take the fabric off the dress form and trim away and cut away some fabric to allow me to continue on with the designing, because I needed to free up some of the bunched fabric that was created when doing that design. After that, it was back to draping. The fabric was freed up enough to work with the lower part of the bodice, the skirt, and also the back. With how this design turned out, there's one piece of fabric creating the bodice front, back, and a majority of the skirt. I added one skirt piece to the left side and one section to the side bodice to close the gap. There's also a little gore thing on the back of the skirt, and that was it for this type of fabric. Finally, with hours of draping behind me, it was time to finalize all the pleats and tucks with some hand stitching. A quick press of all the pleats helps sink in those stitches, as well as create a final crisp look. And now to create some underskirts. I decided to just use the matching green and not the darker green, mainly because it's just for the underskirt, and I decided that the darker fabric would just take away from the overall design. So I chose the more matching green so that the underskirt wouldn't be super noticeable. I'm creating one godet to fill in the split I cut on the left side. Also don't want random edges of the rest of the skirt to flip out, and overall just want to fill out the look. So I'm cutting a few half circle skirts to connect under the main part of the skirts. Here's a clip of the skirt once it's all finished. So under this main part of the skirt, from the front, there's a half circle connected to the left, and then it goes around and is connected to the narrow back section that comes off the bodice. And here you can see that added little piece that I did of the main fabric to help lengthen that back piece, because it wasn't long enough and just looked kind of funny. And then on this side, we've got the overlaid skirt section, and a godet is placed in that split that I created. One side is connected to the back piece and the other side is connected to the front piece of the main fabric. That front side seam is the same seam that first circle skirt that I mentioned starts. So it's a bit strange. My main thoughts for this was to allow the skirt to move freely without random edges popping out, but I also wanted to have a bit of wonky and mystery to what the skirt was doing. Also, I didn't film any of the hemming, but I cut sections of the green satin in the shape of each section of the hem and then got it sewn to the edge. And then I used Heat and Bond iron-on adhesive to secure the edge in place. I almost can't believe I just said that and did that. But the fabric was proving tricky to keep stitches hidden, and also I wanted something quick, so this worked out great. Now for the zipper, I decided to get creative with doing the closure to try and make it as hidden as possible. So the zipper follows the line of the draped back piece, starting around center back and wraps around to the side and then goes into the skirt almost at side front. So once that zipper is placed, don't worry, I'll show you what it looks like once the closure is done. But all the edges are turned over and hand sewn in place with a catch stitch, trying to hide the stitches on the right side in the pleats. For the armhole, there's just one. I attached a bias cut strip of satin fabric and then am using Heat and Bond again to secure the edge. This was actually my first use of it before doing the hem, and I liked how it worked and so decided to do the hem with it. For the right side of the bodice, with it being strapless, I needed to place a piece of boning to get structure there. Now to finish up this closure. The zipper comes around this line and goes into the underskirt. Then this front piece of the skirt wraps around and lays along the hip. But to keep it in place, some hooks and eyes need to be attached. One last-minute addition to the bodice came to be a necessity because of the nature of the fabric. So all these pleats are not sewn in place. They are pleated and then bonded to an interfacing. So for the most part, my draping pleats and all that keep it in place, just structurally. But along the back pleats, with how the pleats are compared to my draped pleats, it's not the case. So when too much tension is applied to this area, or you pull it too tight when you're doing the zipper, some of the pleats start stretching away from the interfacing, and now it has no more pleats and it's not a great fitting bodice. So I did have the foresight to attach another piece of thick interfacing to keep these pleats in place and just add overall more strength to the area before too much of this happened. But that is definitely one downside to this fabric that I was hoping I didn't have to worry about, but kind of ended up having to worry about. Also, I placed one more piece of boning on the other side because I just felt it was weird only having boning on one side of the bodice. Thank you so much for watching this video, creating another fiction to fashion look. Also, I chose like the coldest night to do this video photo shoot. It was nearly freezing, so cold, and so in between takes, I threw on my jacket and tried to warm up. But it definitely called for a lot of moments of jumping and funny faces to try to mask the feeling of being so cold. But anyway, enjoy the bloopers. Stay tuned for more videos in the future. Thanks again for watching, and as always, a huge thank you to my patrons, YouTube members, and Instagram subscribers for your continued support. See you next time.